All right, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Friday, June 13th, 8 a.m. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. Great to have you here. Great to have you a part of the Sliwa Show. Great to have you a part of Hoops Talk. Thank you for spending some time here. Are we already in mid-June? The hell is going on here? We're already almost a month and a half into the Lakers offseason, which is kind of crazy to think here. We got a lot. By the way, there's a lot of kind of some key dates coming up here for the NBA. I know we're still in the NBA Finals, but definitely some key dates coming up. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for being here on a Friday morning. Like I mentioned, I do have a quote here for everybody that I want to share. Take a look at the comments, get a little bit of a rundown. Got a good guest today as well, so I'm looking forward to kind of wrapping up this week with a solid show here. All right, quote I got for today. Don't depend too much on anyone in this world because even your own shadow leaves you when you are in darkness. Don't depend too much on anyone in this world because even your own shadow leaves you when you're in darkness. Okay, good quote right there. Good quote right there. Solid quote right there. All right, let me give everyone just a quick rundown what we got going on for the show today. Let me read a couple of these comments here real quick before I do that. This is a must-win for OKC. I expect OKC to pull out a narrow victory. Of course, tonight we got game 4. By the way, too much time in between these games. I love this Wednesday and this Friday game. We were talking about that yesterday. I forget who I was talking to about that, but I think it's been a disadvantage for them to actually have this much separation between the games. Good morning, Slee. Happy Friday. Good morning to you, Victor. Thank you very much for being here, brother. Let me give everyone a quick rundown what we're going to do for the show today, and then we will get things started. OKC versus Indiana game 4 tonight. We'll spend a little bit of time on it, kind of preview a little bit of the game. I saw this Benedict Mathurin stat that's might be one of the more wild stats that I've ever seen. But we'll talk a little bit about the game. Basically, this is kind of I don't think I'm being too dramatic here when I'm saying a little bit of a do or die for the Oklahoma City Thunder, but I think we'll find out a lot about what the Thunder are all about. Find that out tonight. Magic was on First Take, and he was on Get Up yesterday. And he had a lot to say about the Lakers. He had a lot to say about Luka Doncic. I want to react to that, spend a little time on that. I think there's some things that he said that are absolutely make all the sense in the world. And there are a couple things I think in there that I don't know how much apply to today's NBA, but we'll spend a little time on that. Khobi Price, who covers the Lakers for the SoCal News Group, will join the show. We got him in about, let's call it 10 minutes or so, 12 minutes, something like that. He's going to come on at 8:15, and we'll talk a little bit of everything with him. Khobi is a good person, been covering the Lakers now for a couple of years, traveling and doing the whole thing as far as a beat writer goes. So he's always got some good intel on the Lakers. News came out on Dorian Finney-Smith yesterday in regards to a surgery that he had, an ankle surgery that he had. He underwent left ankle surgery. Some things I want to talk about with Dorian Finney-Smith as well about this upcoming season. And frankly, Dorian Finney-Smith, I don't think lived up to the expectations. I had higher expectations for him. NBA rumors, there's rumors floating everywhere about everyone right now. So we'll spend a little bit of time on that. Do a little weekend preview. Tonight, let's see what we got here. Tonight might be the best game of the finals. I'll save that one. Definitely, probably the most desperate you're going to see from the Oklahoma City Thunder. So I think there's a little bit of truth to that. DFS needs a ticket out of town. Damn, are people already want Dorian Finney-Smith outside the Lakers? I'll take Dorian Finney-Smith. I'll keep DFS. I'll take my time with that, and hopefully he turns things around. A couple people already talking about DFS wasn't consistent enough. So we'll get to Dorian Finney-Smith here in, you know what? It's actually not that big of a topic. I don't mind just kind of keying things off here with a little Dorian Finney-Smith to start the show. We could do that here real quick. Then I'll get into some of the other stuff. Just real quick on DFS. So I saw this yesterday. Dave McMahon had put it out. Los Angeles Lakers forward Dorian Finney-Smith underwent surgery on his left ankle and is expected to be able to participate in training camp ahead of the 2025-2026 season. The procedure will allow the 31-year-old Finney-Smith to play pain-free after cleaning up a lingering ankle injury that he fought to play through the last several seasons. All right, so it kind of gives you a little bit of an idea for him. He does have a player option for this upcoming year. We'll see what the Lakers end up doing. I guess he has to decide by June 29th is a date that he has to decide. I definitely think the Lakers, it's in their, I think they have it in their mind to definitely keep Dorian Finney-Smith, but that's just kind of something to keep in mind there in regards to him having the surgery. And we'll hit on that in a little bit here, and I'll get into a little bit more details on that. But anyways, that's the news on DFS. The question is really going to be if this player can be consistent enough for the Lakers moving forward. Okay, so let's do this. Let's talk a little OKC, Indiana, Game 4 tonight of the NBA Finals. And then I'll go back to some of these comments here because I know a lot of people got some thoughts on a few different topics that I mentioned. And I'm looking forward to tonight. I really am. I think the Indiana Pacers have made this an exciting series. Honestly, I think that's probably what I'm looking forward to more than anything else. I like watching Indiana play. And I like that Indiana's not rolling over. And I like that Indiana already got a couple of it. We're 3 games in and they're already up 2-1. I like that this is in Indiana. I think just kind of adds a little bit more allure to the game because now it's the Oklahoma City Thunder that got to win a game on the road in a tough environment. To put this simply, I think the Indiana Pacers are saying to themselves, we're 2 home wins away from winning the franchise's first NBA championship. But I think what's made this series exciting so far, it has everything to do with the Pacers and honestly nothing to do with the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'll explain to you what I mean by that. What I mean by that is the fact that the Lakers, how many times do I end up doing that? I always throw the Lakers in as if they're in the NBA Finals. The fact that the Indiana Pacers were such heavy underdogs and already have 2 games under their belt makes this series exciting. The fact that the Indiana Pacers have this DNA of coming back in games that they should absolutely have no shot of winning. You can go back and look at Game 5 versus the Bucks, Game 2 against the Cavs, Game 1 against the Knicks, Game 1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Literally, you have 4 different examples, one in each round, that says, yeah, the Pacers are done in this game, and then they eventually come back. The fact that they, have kind of put themselves in the spot where we're saying tonight is a must win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Pacers, in my opinion, are they are the reason why this NBA Finals has been exciting. It's been because of them, and frankly, not so much of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Do Pacers grow on it? Do they look at this game tonight, and is Rick Carlisle saying, if we're going to win this series, we got to win tonight's game? How desperate are they? What are the fan bases like? How does Oklahoma City respond? I think there's a lot of cool storylines coming into this game. And I mentioned this when I was doing my just kind of rundown. One of the reasons why I'm a fan of tonight's game, there isn't that much time in between. They played Wednesday, they play Friday. I do think that benefits the Indiana Pacers. A lot of tired legs, it looked like, for the Oklahoma City Thunder in that last game. So I think there's a lot of good storylines to tonight's game. One of the other things that I'm wildly interested in, how do the Thunder respond? Here's a squad that won 68 games, heavy favorites. I keep hearing people say that they haven't had a finals favorite, this much of a favorite, since the Lakers and the Pistons back in 2004. And we all know what happened there. The Pistons dominated the Lakers. And then that was it. Shaq and Khobi era was over from there. And Lakers started rebuilding. And Shaq went to Miami, got traded to Miami, eventually won an NBA championship there. And we know what Khobi did after that. But it ended, that was the end of an era. Now, the Oklahoma City Thunder, a completely different predicament situation, one of the youngest teams to get here. They're going to be knocking on the door for years to come, even if they don't win a championship tonight. But now I think for the first time, I have curiosity about the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think for the first time, I'm saying to myself, I'm sitting back. I'm like, well, how do they respond? All this chatter now around the Indiana Pacers, they're the incredible storyline. Tyrese Halliburton get a lot of love. And, you could point at a number of different things so far this season or this playoff run. A lot of it's pointing towards anytime Indiana does something, that's the storyline. OKC, it's like, well, they're expected to win. They're down 2-1. They still got, wild talent on their team. They have the MVP. They have some phenomenal role players. And if you want to say inexperienced, not however you want to describe them, they're still the heavy favorites. How do they respond? Do we get the best game the Oklahoma City Thunder have played all series long? Do we get that tonight? Do we get one of the best games that the Oklahoma City Thunder have played all playoffs? Does that happen tonight? Do the Oklahoma City Thunder, who lost game 3 and lost game 1, do they respond tonight and say, okay, we get it, all the hype around the Indiana Pacers, give them their credit, give them their due, but by the time tonight's all said and done, we'll be back in control, the series will be tied to a piece, and then who knows how the rest of this series goes. I can't tell you this. If Indiana wins tonight, I don't think many people are going to still pick the Oklahoma City Thunder. As we sit here tonight, Vegas and a lot of these odds, they still have the Thunder eventually winning this series. Obviously, that changes completely tonight. I'm now my attention has shifted to the Oklahoma City Thunder. All right, well, how are they going to respond? What are they going to look like? Are they a team that's going to come out desperate? Do they have their best game that they've played all playoffs? Does that happen tonight? Do they feel like, hey, we're one game away from taking control of the series, going back to OKC and then figuring it out from there? I don't know. But I will say that the Indiana Pacers have shown they are not worried about the Oklahoma City Thunder. They don't care about the hype. They don't care about the odds. None of those players on that team are walking into a game saying to themselves, well, the Thunder are just better or the Thunder are just supposed to win. That's not how they played this entire, obviously this entire finals run or this entire playoff run. And I don't expect that tonight as well. So, but I think tonight's a good game. I think tonight the Oklahoma City Thunder know that they can't go down 3-1. Indiana already, has the 2-1 advantage. Obviously, they're going for not the kill, but a very, very, they can really, really hurt the chances of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Tonight might be one of the best games that we get in the NBA Finals. It might be happening tonight. All right, let me look at a couple of your comments here. And then, like I mentioned, we got Khobi Price coming on here in about 5 minutes or so. All right, let's see what we have here. OKC and Pacers haven't lost back-to-back in the playoffs, so Pacers in 7. Damn, can Pacers go in? I guess they can. I wouldn't feel comfortable if I'm the Pacers. I think you got to finish it in 6. If you're the Pacers, I think you got to finish it. If they're going to win an NBA championship, I don't know how much I want to be going back to OKC for a Game 7. Game 4, make Shea work again like previous game. The crowd is their 6th man. There is something about making making Shea Gilgeous-Alexander almost kind of similar to what they did with Jalen Brunson. Make him work 94 feet a game. Everything that he gets, make him work on the defensive side. And, what may happen to Shea is what you saw in that fourth quarter in Game 3. He looked tired. He didn't look fresh. A lot of those players really for the Oklahoma City Thunder look tired. OKC still favored. Yep, you're right about that. Pacers were underestimated, but I think OKC is the better team and are underperforming. They should have been up 20 points at least once each game. Well, you can always kind of point at, in a series, you can always point at one game. You can always kind of look at one game and say, all right, well, where did the series get let go? If I'm thinking, if I'm trying to think here of the Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves, okay, Game 4 was really the series. Once they lost Game 4, you knew the series was over. We may look back on this OKC Indiana Pacers series and really just say to ourselves, hey, Game 1 was the difference. OKC had control for most of the game, and you look up at the scoreboard, Indiana won by 1. Should they have won that game? Probably not. So now the Oklahoma City Thunder, they don't have to win 4 games this series. They got to win 5. That's not uncommon in the playoffs where teams that make these runs, you look back and you're like, all right, well, what was kind of the defining moment in the series? Maybe it's Game 1. I mean, it's still early. They're obviously only 3 games in. but that was obviously a crushing loss for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Rick Carlisle is the it factor. I love actually how Carlisle is getting so much more. He's getting a lot of love these playoffs, and he deserves it. Definitely deserves it. All right, let me welcome in our guest here. Want to welcome in Khobi Rice, covers in the NBA for the so. What's going on, Khobi?
What's up? How's it going, Alan? How you feeling?
Good, brother. How are you doing? You back from vacation? How you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling refreshed, feeling good. Cancun was delightful. We had an agreement about you said to have some margaritas in your honor. I had some margaritas, tequila sunrises, all in your honor. All in your honor.
Thank you, Cope. That means a lot to me. You're right. We did have an agreement. I was asking Cope. I was checking the schedule. I'm like, hey, what's your plan? What do you got coming up? He's like, yeah, I'm going to Cancun. I'm like, okay, never mind. You go enjoy some Cancun over there. How long were you there total?
6 days, 5 nights.
Okay,
so
that's
a
good amount of time.
Yeah, very good amount of time.
What kind of vacation person are you? Vacation like once you go on vacation, you sit and do nothing? Are you? I like to go and explore. What do you usually do?
Yeah, for this occasion, like it's something me and my girlfriend went on a trip together.
Mm-hmm.
Really one of our first like vacations, like our first one getting out the country in that way. So the first couple of days it was a lot of like relaxation. Like the first 2 days really like relaxation, chilling, just really we're at a resort, so we're just chilling. Then the next 2 days, that's when we start to like venture out, excursions, like ATVing, zip lining, like the whole like getting out and having fun. And then like the last couple of days was more just relaxing, taking it easy. So a nice try to find a nice balance between the two.
That's a good game plan there. You kind of you chill for the first couple of days, then you kind of explore, and then you chill, and then before you know you're back. Yeah, did you
I can't take credit for that. That was all her in terms of
structure.
You did a structure.
I believe
the feedback of it was she asked like, what do you think? I was like, but she was the one who was just like the first 2 days chill, middle 2 days, and then the last 2 days were just more relaxation.
I did it was about a year ago or so. I did one of those the all-inclusive resorts. So
yeah,
I'll include all that.
I don't know
about you. Are those good things or are those bad things? Because I think I eat 9 meals a day. I'm like I got nothing to do. I'm gonna go eat something.
To me, they're beautiful things. They're incredible, especially like the kind of place we stayed at. Like there's all the restaurants are like different kinds of cuisine. So like one day we had Italian, we had Mexican, we had like to be able to have the mix up of it. Like we went to every restaurant except like 2 Japanese restaurants, I want to say, that were on site. So to me, it's beautiful. That's the way to do it. If you can do it like that, that's the ideal way.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go have Mexican food at noon, and then at 2, I'm like, you know what? Let's go have some Italian food. It's like 2 hours went by. Why are you having Italian food? Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the trip. How much have you been able to enjoy the NBA Finals? Have you got a chance to watch a lot of these games? And if so, what's been your thoughts?
Yeah, I've been able to catch a good amount. Oddly enough, the day we got back was literally we got back like half an hour before game 1 started.
Oh, perfect.
It was so I've been able to keep up, excuse me, a fair amount with it. Like trying to watch as much as possible. In terms of what I make of the finals, like I've heard you talking about it after I hopped on. Like it's hard to get seen 5 times in a series, or you had depending on how you look at it. Like the Pacers snatched victories from the jaws of defeat, or the OKC Thunder snatched defeat from the jaws of victory in game 1. And I think we kind of saw that with the Lakers too. I think it was what game was it? Game 3 or 4, where that's the game that if you don't win that game, it just becomes so much harder to win the series because.
Well, because I know exactly what you're talking about, because I was trying to think too. I'm like, okay, what was the deciding game? Game 3 is a game where Luka was sick.
Yeah.
And then game 4 is the game where, you kind of felt like, all right, Lakers got a good shot to win this game. That's a game, no substitutions in the second half. And that really became the storyline, was Austin Reeves missing the corner three, and that was ball game.
Yeah. So again, obviously that series wasn't 5, so one game didn't decide it. But in any series, like, you never know which game can be the difference between, winning in 5 versus winning in 7, or losing in 7. One game can flip the complexion of a series, and we saw that in game 1. Like, imagine if OKC's up 2-1 right now, instead, up 2-1 going into game 4, and they're smelling blood, or they're just up 2-0 going into game 3. Maybe you feel like the Pacers win game 3 regardless. But for right now, from where I sit, I think it's been a fun series to take in.
I agree.
Like games 1 and game 1 was weird but amazing. Game 3 was awesome. I caught a fair amount of it, and it was. I think it was better than game 1, just in terms of the back and forth competitiveness. It was awesome. One of my favorites, one of my favorite finals games of recent, maybe 5-6 years.
Yeah, and I think some of it has to do with, I don't know how you felt coming in. I don't know if you just thought, hey, OKC's going to roll and that's it. I thought OKC would win in 6. It's easy to kind of just fall into the Thunder are supposed to win. And then as you're watching the playoffs go on, or as you're watching the finals go on, the Pacers give absolutely no vibe that they think, oh, well, we got to the NBA finals, we're good.
No.
There is definitely this, and by the way, we don't know how the NBA, this might be the greatest chance the Indiana Pacers franchise ever has a shot of winning an NBA championship. This could be it right now. You don't know how things kind of, but the way they're approaching these games, the way you could tell all these guys, just their mentality. Yeah, I don't think there's anybody on the Pacers that doubt they got a shot of winning this thing. And it doesn't matter what the odds look like, and it doesn't matter what Vegas thinks. They got a legitimate shot of winning this thing.
They do. And something that, as we've gotten deeper into the playoffs, I think it's become more widely known throughout, the NBA media sphere, just how good the Pacers have been for a while. I mean, the stat keeps coming up. I was looking up even before coming on the show, like, people reference this, and I want to come back to it as well. Like, from December 1st through the end of the regular season, the Pacers, this is a 62-game sample. They had the 4th best record in the league. OKC was obviously number 1. They were 53-10 from December 1st onward. But it was OKC, Cleveland, Boston, then the Pacers. So, and we remember just how poor of a start the Pacers got off to. But it's also, for basically saying 3/4 of the season, they were a top 5 team in the league. So they have every right to believe that they're just as good as anybody they face. I mean, again, the 2 teams above them, Cleveland and Boston, well, they knocked Cleveland out pretty easily in the second round. And then Boston, obviously, they didn't face, but they were 3.5 games worse than them in the regular season, for 3/4 of the season. So again, or for the final 3/4. So again, I know sometimes you can look at the final record and be like, oh, OKC should roll them just because they were 68-win team. The Pacers, they're lucky to, quote unquote, lucky to be here, but they have all the reason in the world to be confident in themselves, because again, for 3/4 of the regular season and obviously the playoffs, they've been a top 5 team in the league, and obviously now top 2 team in the league, and they're up 2-1 against the team that everybody, even including myself, I didn't really have a series prediction. Again, I was in Cancun when actually our first day was game, what was that, game 6
of the Knicks?
Yeah, the series clinching win for the Pacers. So I was not thinking about finals predictions. So I didn't really, but I just, if you asked me at the time, I would just say, like, okay, so he's going to win this how many games? I'm having too much fun to think about that. But yeah, like they Pacers have every reason to believe that they could, beat any team. I mean, they beat, again, you look at the teams, from December 1st, they beat Cleveland and they beat the Knicks. Those were 2 of the top, 2 of the other top 6 teams, from December 1st onward. So they have all the reason in the world to be confident.
Every team, I'm sure there's a lot of different fan bases or reporters, whatever the case is. They're all looking at, there's only 2 teams left. And I'm sure a lot of fan bases are trying to compare their team to the final 2 teams left. Mm-hmm. What do you, when you think of the Lake Show right now, how far do you think they are I think there's a kind of a beauty to watch the NBA right now where it does look a little bit different. It's not just these super teams, and really building super teams are not easy as well. That the parity in the NBA, I think I'm a fan of it. How far or how close do you think the Lakers are if they have the right offseason and they're able to just address, hey, there's now a center that makes sense for this roster, and there's maybe another wing player that makes sense for the roster, and the bench, you got a little bit of depth there. If they're able to, if the front office is able to kind of do the make the right moves and make the right adjustments, are they pretty close to where some of these teams are, or you still think there's a distance away?
Yeah, I don't think there's a significant. I mean, at least as of right now, there's a gap. But if they, fortify the roster in the right spots, mainly, obviously the center position, figure out the wing spot, whether that's a 2-3 or adding another 3-4. I honestly think they need to. I know some of the archetype, like positional archetypes, are a little, old school or antiquated, but I kind of do feel like they're missing like a true shooting guard, like a player who can play 2-3, like a true wing in that sense. Maybe not a 3-4. They have plenty of 3-4s on the roster, or players who can toggle back and forth between 3-4. But if they can figure out, obviously the center spot, and then figuring out a reserve 2-3, or someone who can play 20 minutes a night, like they're not that far away. Like I know the Minnesota series went the way it did, but with better, I mean, I think what also goes under the radar is that Luka. Even though Luka's numbers were what they were, I don't think that's the best Luka. I don't think this roster also maximized Luka's talent, just from the standpoints of Luka wants a center. He honestly, for him to be his most effective self, I think he actually needs a center, that interior rim presence, especially offensively. So if they can figure out how to build a roster around Luka better, in a way that we saw Dallas do, really that last season and a half before trading to the Lakers, like they're not that far away. Like they're OKC. The scary thing about OKC is that you feel like next year they're going to somehow be better than they were this season. But they could be, if they have the right offseason, they can be right behind OKC, with Minnesota, with Denver, potentially the Clippers, Golden State, like that group of teams.
Khobi, do you think a lot of teams feel that way? Do you feel like, and I think you look at the East and the West. And by the way, this is what makes the offseason so interesting and so challenging, and however you want to kind of describe it. You're right. There are probably, what was it? Maybe it was probably a couple of weeks ago, Brian Windhorst was talking about how he feels there's 13 teams in the West that will probably think, hey, we should go for it, as in, let's be aggressive and let's try to get whoever we can, and let's see how far that gets us. How much do you think this summer is going to be this just competition for, you only have X amount of players, so everybody's kind of trying to fill in their void. Does that benefit the Lakers? Does it hurt the Lakers? Just how do you feel how competitive that's going to be this upcoming summer?
Very. I mean, when you look at the West, again, OKC is kind of, regardless of how the rest of the series goes, you do feel like they're the team that is just going to enter next season as the favorite in the West, and rightfully so, respectfully so. But after that, I don't know if there's a significant gap, in between. Like I know Minnesota's made back-to-back Western Conference Finals, but you have, Minnesota, the Lakers, Clippers, Golden State, Denver. I feel like those 5 teams all feel like, they all feel like they're in a mix in some shape or fashion. Obviously, it depends on how their offseason goes. Obviously, you still have Houston. Houston's a team that, to me, can be a wild card in terms of they can make a move for a variety,
100%.
a variety of bigger fish out there. Whether that's, obviously, you hear about Kevin Durant. There's like the under the radar Jaylen Brown uncertainty with Boston. Like, if they can't get Kevin Durant, or do they take a similar package and go after Jaylen Brown? Like there's a variety of guys they could go after, and that could really move them up into the upper echelon of the West. And I'm saying that knowing that they were the 2 seed last year.
Stay in Texas too, where, okay, what will Dallas look like? What will the San Antonio Spurs look like when the offseason settles? And By the way, if KD hypothetically, let's say he went to the San Antonio Spurs and didn't go to Houston, well, now you have both of those teams are going to be really good in the Western Conference. So there are a lot of there. I think there are some wild cards, and then I think there are also some teams where you're just expecting to be in the mix again.
I do. Now I do expect. I actually kind of saw this kind of play out this season or this past season. I do expect for there to be a larger gap between, like, I guess I just named like 5 or 6 teams from like and I guess we kind of saw this play out just more so because of injuries. But I do expect for there to be a bigger gap between teams like, say, I guess like 8 and 9. And that typically happens, but I think Phoenix is going to take a step back regardless of what happened. Like, it seems like Kevin Durant's going to get traded. I think they're going to take a step back regardless of what the trade package is. Not Phoenix, Sacramento. To me, they're a mess now. Like, that's one of those. Like, I'm having a hard time seeing a way in which they may make the play in, but it's going to be a mess. Dallas, I actually don't know how to read. I mean, they're going to get Cooper Flag. Anthony Davis will be on the team for the full season, healthy, presumably. So
Kyrie will miss, a good probably at least half the season. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like the back end of the West may not be as good as maybe last year, at least the start last season was, but I do think the top 7 in the West, where they're talking about OKC, both the LA teams, Denver, Minnesota, potentially Houston. I know there's another team, Golden State. You talk about that top 7 in the West, and then maybe the Spurs. Like, the Spurs to me are the ultimate. That's the team I'm looking at as like the ultimate wild card, because you do have Wembanyama, you do have the potential. You have the number 2 pick, or you could trade for a star, or you could trade for a star without including the number 2 pick, depending on what young guys you're willing to trade. Like, they're the team that's like, I guess to me, from where they finished last season to where they could be next season, they have the most upward trajectory. Yeah, upside. But it's also dependent on how their offseason goes too. But it's going to be. I mean, we've seen this in the West the past few seasons. It could be a bloodbath, and I don't expect for that to change. Expect for that to change this year or this upcoming season.
All the different names that maybe we've heard, as far as Clint Capela could be available, or will the Lakers go after Brook Lopez, or I'm just naming off guys that I've just heard in the summer. Of all the names that you've heard or rumored, or hey, I wonder if the Lakers can kind of find a way to get this guy or that guy that you feel like is realistic. What are some names that have been thrown around that you're like, hey, that would be a really good fit?
I mean, I guess I'm kind of separating them from like trade targets versus free agent targets. In terms of trades, I mean, I think the obvious ones are Daniel Gafford and Nick Claxton, and I've kind of leaned more Daniel Gafford from the standpoints of it would just take less to. I think it would take less to acquire him. In terms of, I could see Brooklyn looking to get, one of the top, or one of the top Lakers players having to be included in a trade for Nick Claxton from the standpoint of how he's viewed around the league, but also, just the salary that he has. He's paid significantly more than Daniel Gafford, at least for this upcoming season. He is on a descending contract. Daniel Gafford is on an expiring contract. But in my view, that should actually help the Lakers from the standpoint of trading for Daniel Gafford. So from a trade standpoint, I think Daniel Gafford would be one of the top targets.
Tough just because it's Dallas and that history.
Yeah, that's the tough part. Like, you just don't know, like, what's the appetite of making another trade, with one another. But I do think there's a way in which, both teams can help each other out. Obviously, Dallas needs some backcourt help in light of Kyrie's injury. The Lakers have, a player in Gabe Vincent that I feel like could help Dallas. And obviously the Lakers are looking to get a big man. Dallas they're going to have Cooper Flag. I mean, he's not a center, but he's going to be playing a good amount at 3-4.
Sure. They got size. They definitely got enough size.
So, they can help each other out. Maybe Dallas is like, hey, let's get a little bit more, like, let's make this trade look a little bit more in our favor. Give us a little extra just for the Luka trade from February. So from a trade, like, if you get one of Claxton or Gafford, you're in a good spot. But I think I would lean Gafford just from the standpoint of I think we'd take a little less to acquire him. Now, that's not even – if you can do a 3-team trade or get other teams involved, maybe that helps you with the Claxton part. But free agency standpoint, I think Capela would probably be the top free agent target.
Yeah, if you get that, I was talking about this yesterday. That 5.7, if you're able to get him for that 5.7, that just seems like that's great value. And it also seems like it's just such a need for the Lakers. You're not asking the man to play 30 minutes a night, but man, does it feel like that would be great value for the Lakers just for how desperate they are for a big and the price that you can get him at potentially.
100%. And the other thing is that, I think maybe you and I have spoken about this, or maybe not. They need multiple big men. I mean, in my view, like if you ask me like the perfect situation, like perfect realistic is you're able to find a trade for Gafford, right? You're able to sign Capela with your mid-level exception.
You're good.
And then I think I was going to say, I think you should also consider either bringing back Koloko or either bringing back Koloko on either. I think he's still eligible for 2, but bringing back Koloko in some capacity.
And you're saying basically depth for size, just depth for size there. Yep.
Yeah, because the other thing is that the thing with Gafford is he doesn't have a history of being like a full-time, like 25 to 30 minute per game starting center. Like I think he's been more so around like 22, 23, 24, 25. So if you could have, if you could basically have Capela, if you have your top 2 centers, whether it's Capela, Gafford, Claxton, and Capela, it would be nice if they could have a little bit of diversity between, if you had a Claxton, and I think this is maybe where it fits. If you had like Claxton and Capela, you have a little bit like you have a twitchier, I guess you have a twitchier big man and Claxton and like a stockier big man and Capela. So you can kind of have like a little bit of diversity in terms of their skill sets while also having the same similar rim protection. Claxton obviously better lob finisher. But if you're able to have your starting centers be able to eat up like 38 to 40 minutes per night between your top 2 big men, because the other thing is like what gets lost in the playoffs and how everything went. The Lakers small ball groups were good, or their centerless groups were good, right? They were actually very good lineups. Something that I was worried about, from February onward was how taxing that becomes playing that style for 15, 20, 25, or 24 consecutive minutes, 25 consecutive minutes a night. Just because of just how much energy it takes and how much focus it takes to play that style of basketball. But I do think even the regular season, it has its place, playing 8 minutes a night or playing a couple shifts a game. So you do want to leave some room for that. I don't think the Lakers need a star caliber center or a starting center who plays 35 or 32 to 35 minutes a night. You have a guy who plays, if it's Claxton, 28 to 30. If it's Gafford, 25 to 28. Have a backup big who can play 15 to 20. And then, you still have your small ball or your centerless looks that you could throw out there. If you still have, Rui and DFS and LeBron and Luka, like those still have value too.
Yeah, the one thing that really stood out to me, and I know there's a couple of things, but when they played Minnesota, here was the problem. You're talking about that small ball lineup and that they were actually had some success with a small ball lineup. The problem is the Lakers couldn't play multiple ways. If the Minnesota Timberwolves wanted to say, okay, you know what, let's take Gobert out of the game and we'll go Naz Reid and Julius Randle, that's going to look different. But they had options, or if they wanted to and say, you know what, no, let's keep Gobert in it and let's just pound them on the glass, whatever the case is. Lakers never had an option B.
I mean, yeah, and that's exactly what the concern was. Kind of relaying into what we're talking about with the finals earlier. I know that the OKC Thunder's decision to take Isaiah Hartenstein out the starting lineup, replace him with Wallace in Game 1 was obviously controversial. But if you look at the Thunder, like that's something that is viable. That they can start Chet or they can start Hartenstein or they could play both together. They could play neither. Or if you look at the Pacers, there are times where they'll play. Obviously they start Siakam and Turner and Siakam. There are sometimes when they play Siakam and Toppin together. They could play. Just Siakam as the 5. The optionality is more so. That's important. So the Lakers, what they need to do is increase their options. They need to give themselves more options because, again, especially when it comes to those centerless looks, like that can just wear you down quicker. And then also it just helps to have options so you can throw off looks. I mean, that was one of the, like you said, the fact that Minnesota could really toggle between, Gobert, Randall, Gobert, Nas, Randall, and those all be like positive lineups, that's huge.
We got Luka for a couple of months, got the playoffs, got to see some greatness from Luka, got to, I think point out from a Luka perspective, you got to be in better shape. I mean, we went through it all. What do you expect from Luka this upcoming season? Because I think right now, if I told you Luka Doncic, I think the perception everybody has is one of the top players in the league, has a chance to really just have an unbelievable career. He's not even in his prime yet. Has already got to the NBA Finals, Western Conference Finals. At the same time, expectations are different the moment he starts, wearing the purple and gold. What do you expect with a full training camp and a full year with the Lakers?
I expect it to be honestly better than we've seen him before. I mean, this is also, he's truly entering what's supposed to be the prime of his career. Luka's a motivated guy. He's a guy that, he's aware. He's aware of the noise. That's everything that's been said about him. I would imagine, early on it hurt. But, he's aware. He's aware of the criticisms. He's aware of the critiques, especially coming from Dallas' side after the trade. And I'm expecting from Luka's side to be one of his more motivated seasons. Some of Luka's success is not just going to be about like his approach. The Lakers do have to surround him with their best roster they can to maximize the player in him. I don't think they had that this past season. And even despite that, he was still looking incredible, especially as the season, concluded. But from just an individual standpoint, I expect for this to be one of the better seasons we've seen from him. Maybe one of his best seasons of his career. Like, that's the expectation just from a motivation standpoint. Obviously, we see the photos of him, which is always like a tricky bag when you're looking at like photos like this is, everybody's talking about it's like, yeah, I'm sure he's working out. But like, people are like, oh, he's dropped X amount of pounds. We don't know that for sure just based off the photos. However, the motivation's there. I'm sure the work's going to, be there. We're actually going to see him in a couple months with Eurobasket with Slovenia. So even before the season starts, even before training camp starts, we'll get an idea of exactly where Luka's at. And I expect it, again, to be one of his best seasons or better seasons of his career up to this point.
Yeah, and I think the noise will be allowed too. I think if he is performing, then he's going to get his credit. And I think if he's not, this will be a little bit different for something that he hasn't really faced in his career. And I'm not saying that he wasn't getting criticism in Dallas if things weren't going right, but things were kind of going right in Dallas, right? He was phenomenal. The team that they put around him was really good as well. They surpassed some of their expectations, whether that was getting to the NBA Finals or however you want to describe it. So I do think that, that noise will be there if it's not going the way it should be going. So I think that part's going to be interesting as well. Cole, final one I got for you, brother, and I appreciate your time as always. How do you think the LeBron situation plays out? Do you think LeBron is just coming back and this will be the final year, or do you think we'll be seeing LeBron for a couple of years?
Oh, man. I mean, I know the latest reporting is that he's going to opt into his player option. That reporting was, I think, from late May. So, 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. I mean, we've been through this for 6-7 years in terms of maybe not 6-7 for 3 to 4 years in terms of is this going to be LeBron's final season? It's hard for me to look in this camera and be like, yeah, this is probably going to be LeBron's final season, just because it feels like whenever that's the feeling, he just is has an amazing season. It's like, oh no, he can do this for another 2 years, right? So, I mean, my feeling is that he's going to come back to the Lakers, and I don't think this is going to be it. I don't feel like this is going to be it. Something in my gut just tells me this isn't it. It feels like we have at least two more seasons left in them. But again, I don't think anyone knows yet. I'm not even sure if LeBron's made that decision yet, but it does feel like just my gut feeling. The gut feeling is that we've got more than one more season of LeBron in the NBA.
Well, yeah, I think that will obviously continue to be a storyline. It ain't going anywhere, and we'll obviously see what happens from there. And honestly, I think for the Lakers, there's got to be a little bit of this. How does this a return in the page? Is it no? This is what it's going to look like for the next couple of years. So we'll have to wait and find out about that as well. My brother, thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time. I know we'll connect again here as we get to free agency and everything else, but I appreciate the time.
Oh, appreciate you. Yes, coming up quick. Drafts soon. Week and a half, and then 2.5 weeks before free agency. So it's about that time.
It's coming.
About that time.
It's coming, Khobi. All right, brother. Have a good rest of your Friday.
You too. Have a good Friday. Have a great weekend.
All right, man. All right, that's Khobi Price right there. Okay, good stuff, Khobi. Yeah, good stuff. You know, it's funny. A lot of these conversations, a lot of these topics, there's a few that I want to hit on from what he was talking about. A lot of these comments, for me at least, you know, the vibe that I'm getting from a lot of people that I talk to or they've been on this show, I think a lot of people are very optimistic about what the Lakers are going to do this offseason. And I think they're optimistic about kind of the year to come. I think one of the things that you can look at when you look at the two teams in the NBA Finals, there isn't this crazy distance, it feels like, between the teams that are in the finals and everybody else. Even if the Indiana Pacers win an NBA championship, do you think they're the favorites next year? Probably not. Even if OKC wins a championship, give OKC, you know, obviously I get it, 68 wins, and they were actually heavy favorites. But I think the point I'm trying to make is these teams are beatable if you put together the right roster, if you make the right, you know, moves at the summer or in the summer, and then maybe put yourself some tweaks by the time you get to the trade deadline. But it doesn't really matter who I talk to. I feel like there are a lot of people that are optimistic about the Lakers' position and what they're going to do this offseason. So we'll see what eventually happens in regards to that. Okay, let me get to a few comments. I still got this Magic stuff that I want to get into on Luka and a number of different topics as well. So let me just take a quick look here. I hope Luka is watching the finals. All the flopping not helping SGA. Yeah, by the way, who was it that was saying? Somebody was, I think it was Nick Wright, that was giving credit to the referees in the finals so far. I agree with him. I don't really think there's been that much coming from the finals where I'm like, you know, the referees really screwed this one up or that one. SGA is not living at the free throw line. Doesn't mean he's not getting to the free throw line. And SGA is also, I think, you know, if he's trying to be cheap, which I don't really feel like he's trying to draw a crazy amount of fouls, they're also not giving it to him if he is trying to flop or anything along those lines. So I'm with you on that. Stylistically, I hate it. You're right. There's a little bit of it that happens when it's in regards to Luka as well that I'm not all that crazy about as well. All right, let me get a couple more comments in here, and then we'll start getting into the other stuff. Luka was not looking incredible as the season concluded. He was gassed, tell the truth. Okay, but how much of that is on Luka? How much of that is on the team? How much of that is not having enough depth? And how much of that is also Luka wasn't in shape? And I think it's kind of a combination of everything, right? I think that's fair to say. Let me give a quick example here because this is going to lead me to my next point. Magic was on yesterday, and we'll get a chance to talk about this a little bit. This one, he was on a couple, I think he did Get Up and he did First Take yesterday. But let me share this with everybody. So this was some video yesterday, Magic talking about Luka. And it's good video. Honestly, I anytime Magic's got an opinion on something, I think for the most part, I'm always curious to hear what he says, whether, you know, I completely agree with it or I don't, whatever the case is. But here's Magic talking about Luka yesterday.
Well, first of all, great job by Coach J.J. Redick to put everybody on notice on the Lakers team that they have to be in better conditioning for them to win an NBA championship. And I'm glad that Luka listened to J.J. And now look at him. I mean, he looks great right now. And the rest of the Lakers.
Can I just say this? The Khobi Price hit this on for a second too. I mean, I don't know what you guys make of the videos and the photos and all that stuff. It's June 13th. So, you know, whether Luka is in the best shape of his life in June 13th or not, obviously the proof will be in the pudding come training camp. What's he look like by the time you get to October? Or what? He's obviously going to be a part of some basketball for his country a little bit later in the summer. But I think the true question is going to be, what does Luka look like as we get into next season? But keep listening to Magic.
Lakers have to do the same thing, right? And Luka, it's great what you did in Dallas. But the difference is in Los Angeles, we expect championships. and we expect our superstars to lead us to a championship. LeBron has already did that. Now we want Luka to do the same thing. But it's going to take more than just Luka, right? It's going to take more than just Luka being in shape. Rob Pelinka got to improve the roster, right? And so we need a big man. And so hopefully we'll be able to get a big man during this offseason. I think we must improve the bench as well. And so Rob will have a chance to do that as well. So we got to get faster, Jay. Right now, the Lakers are too slow. And Minnesota really exposed the Lakers, right? And so when they had individual matchups, they went at Luka and they went at Austin Reeves. So they must improve the defense. If they don't improve the defense, there's no way the Lakers can win a championship.
All right, that's Magic right there. I'm really, really glad Magic mentioned something, because I think if anybody sits here and they think this is all on Luka's back, then the Lakers aren't going to be winning a championship anytime soon. But I like what he said about, yes, Luka's got his responsibility, but it's not all on Luka. Then you start turning to, what's the roster look like? How much does it make sense? I mean, this is why when he was in Dallas, you also got to give a lot of credit to their front office. By the way, you got to give a lot of your credit to Nico Harrison, because he did put together a roster that made sense. And he did eventually put together a team where Luka can be Luka and excel. And whatever weaknesses that Luka had, he had help with PJ Washington, or you need another scoring threat, there's Kyrie, or you got some bigs that are lob threats, or I just got a great defense behind me. It can't just be on Luka. There's not one player that can just win a championship on his own. It's not possible. And I don't care how good that player was. You need a lot of factors in order to make that happen. So as much as Magic was giving, kind of going at Luka about being in the right shape, and that this is the Lakers, and the Lakers, when you got superstars that are expected to win championships, at the end of the day, you got to have a team. And I think last year, if you want to look at Luka, or this past season, and you want to criticize Luka for not being in good enough shape and didn't do a good enough job, and whatever you want to talk about with Luka, that's fine. They didn't not beat the Minnesota Timberwolves because of Luka. It's not because of Luka they didn't get to the Western Conference Finals this year, or the NBA Finals. They just didn't have they didn't have the proper roster. And frankly, I'm not even going to put a lot on Pelinka's back, because I think it would be unfair to expect Pelinka to put together a team and a roster that will compete for a championship, do it all at the trade deadline, while you completely change the face of your franchise. You get to the summer, that's that's obviously a different conversation. And that's how the expectations are going to change as we sit here today. The one other thing that I will say about, what Magic said, that part of me, I get what he's coming from. When he said, I think his exact quote here, let me read it here. It's great what you did in Dallas, but the difference is in LA, we expect championships, and we expect our superstars to lead us to a championship. And LeBron has already done that. I will say that the league is wildly different than it used to be. And I think the days of, Shaq and Khobi winning 3 in a row, or Khobi and Powell getting to the NBA Finals 3 years in a row, those days might be over. I don't know how much you can build a championship contender that's basically in the mix year after year. It doesn't mean you can't be in the mix in the sense of, you're always one of the favorites to try to compete for a championship. But I think those days are over the way the NBA is built. So I really think what you're saying is, Luka, you're a superstar. Every superstar has won an NBA championship with the Lakers, if not multiple championships. And that is kind of the expectation, and he's right in regards to that. Okay, let me take a look at a few of these comments here. No one on our team could stop penetration, and we had no center to make up for the fact that our guys couldn't keep their players in front of them. Honestly, anything that happened in these past playoffs, I wouldn't hold too much weight on. They got exposed. Maybe you thought after the regular season, nope, maybe the Lakers can make some noise. That wasn't the case. And again, I don't really blame anybody for that. I don't think I could sit here and blame Luka, or blame LeBron, or blame Austin Reeves, or blame Rob Pelinka. They traded for Luka Doncic on February 1st, and they just didn't have enough time to put together a roster. Now they have this summer to try to put together the right roster. Honeymoon is over. Luka needs to perform. Luka and AR clearly won't work as a backcourt. Can't have both players being a defensive liability. Well, I will tell you, I think they're going to walk into that and see what happens, obviously this year. Mavs showed the blueprint to make Luka work. Follow it. He's not a hardcore two-way player, and that's fine. Yeah, just got to play to his advantages. That's it. There are plenty of NBA players out there that are not two-way players. Maybe they're good defensive players. They're not good offensive players. Maybe they're great offensive players, but they don't excel on the defensive side. The good thing is that's why you get to put together a roster. You get to put together an entire team. People have to remember the year the Mavs went to the finals, they sucked for most of the year, made a trade for PJ Washington Gafford, and finished fifth as they had elite defense for them to reach the finals. I know that front office is going to get obviously that front office is going to get talked about, and I get why, because they traded Luka Doncic. Nico had made some pretty decent moves before that. So, obviously what happens from here and what he ends up doing and how they kind of figure things out, we'll see what happens. But up to that point, he actually had made some pretty decent moves. I mean, the Kyrie Irving trade was a controversial one, and he made it, and it worked. Obviously, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. I mean, there's moves that he made that certainly made sense. So we'll see what eventually happens moving forward here. Okay, as we do in every show, I got to give some love to our partner. Thank you to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. Thank you very much to them. They are, if you are someone has been in a serious situation, maybe it's a wrongful death case, you got to reach out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace firm. A lot of injury attorneys out there. I know a lot of noise in the space. What I can tell you is this is somebody that I've personally known for about 5 years now. And just as important, somebody that believes in the channel, believes in what I'm trying to do, believes in kind of the daily show here, the Laker content that I'm putting out here, and would love for you guys to support him if you're ever in a situation where you do need an injury attorney. It's really simple how it gets done as well. Just go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Go to the website. You can fill out this free consultation that you can get so they can try to, see if they can help you in their case. What's the best move going forward? And I think for a lot of people out there, this is such a kind of an intimidating, daunting category. And you got to be in touch with somebody that's a professional and somebody that you could trust. And Brad Wallace and the Wallace team, been around for about 10 years. They can help anybody in the state of California. Definitely encourage you to reach out to them if you got any issue. You could, by the way, reach out to me and I'll make a personal introduction to Brad Wallace. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the whole team over there at the Wallace firm, and the website wallacewins.com/Sliwa, wallacewins.com/Sliwa. All right, a couple more comments here. I did mention Dorian Finney-Smith. I did mention the surgery that he had, and he should be good to go for training camp. I got into it just a little bit. Expected more from DFS. If I could be honest with everybody, I definitely expected more from DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith. So we'll see if he gets a full year with the Lakers as well, what that's going to look like. Couple rumors out there in the NBA. I saw this. Mark Stein had put out there Russell Westbrook declining his player option for next season to become an unrestricted free agent. So we'll see if he stays in Denver. What's the other thing that I saw here? I did see something on the Giannis front. A possibility is far from a certainty. And as things stand today, the expectation is that Giannis Antetokounmpo will start next season as a Buck. Sources told ESPN. To be clear, the emphasis is on today. There's still a lot of road to be walked this offseason, and it's hard to know exactly how everything will shake out. So a lot of the conversation around Giannis Antetokounmpo, just kind of expecting him to potentially leave the Milwaukee Bucks. Now there feels to be a lot of momentum that's basically saying that, no, there actually can be a chance that Giannis starts next season as a Buck. So let's see how things shake out there. One other thing, which has kind of been a little bit quiet, maybe a little bit more under the radar, all the chatter around Kevin Durant. Now some of the chatter is one additional team you keep kind of seeing now to monitor is the Clippers. So maybe there's a world where they're trying to see if Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, and Kevin Durant are playing together. We'll see. I think there's two things that you're hearing here with Kevin Durant. A move's probably going to be made before the NBA draft, which there's some key dates coming up here in the NBA I'm going to get into in just a second. That's number one. And the other thing is the teams that are involved, it's pretty public, the teams that are involved. You hear San Antonio, you hear Houston, you hear Clippers, you hear Miami, just to kind of name a few of the teams here that have been associated with Kevin Durant. All right. We got one other thing left here that I want to do, which is the weekend preview. We're going to do that in just a second here. And I'm going to read a few more comments, and then we're going to call it a week here. Okay, we got the weekend preview. Let me get that up here real quick. Let me see a couple of these comments here real quick. Can't have two liabilities in the backcourt. Dallas cooking with Max and AD defensively. Dallas's problem is going to be health. They just gotta be healthy. So whatever happens from here happens from here. Ever since Magic left the Lakers high and dry and went on that media tour, I've taken him less seriously as a pundit. Yeah, people didn't like the way he left. Giannis should stay in the East. Maybe he's listening to everybody. Why would you come to the Western Conference? Maybe he's listening to everybody. Okay, quick couple things on the weekend preview. So we're going to get, obviously, an NBA Finals game tonight. Tonight will be Game 4. Pacers up 2-1. Tip-off's going to be at 5:30. I mentioned some key dates to keep in mind. June 25th, June 26th, that's the NBA draft. June 29th, last day for a team or player option to be exercised. June 30th, free agent negotiations can begin with players not on your own team. And then July 1st, obviously, we know that's free agency. So there are, over the next, let's call it 17 days, couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks, a lot of key dates coming up for the NBA. Couple other things from a weekend preview perspective. Baseball, a lot of the teams in the NL West are going to be playing each other this weekend. So the Padres and the Diamondbacks will start a 3-game set. I know the Dodgers will be taking on the Giants. Actually, pretty fun series right there. Giants and the Dodgers separated by a game. And tonight at Dodger Stadium, Logan Webb versus Yamamoto. So you got two phenomenal pitchers going at it. So that should be a fun game to kind of keep an eye on there in the NL West. Last thing that I'm going to point out from a weekend preview perspective. Okay, listen, I'm not sitting here and I'm trying to tell you that when you need NHL news, you come to Sliwa. Definitely not trying to tell you that. But the Stanley Cup, it's been really good. What were Oilers down yesterday? 3-1. Come back, take a 4-3 lead. Florida ties it right before the end of, I think in the third period, they tie it with, 20 seconds left, something like that. They go to OT. Oilers win in OT, series tied to a piece. It's actually been really good. Saturday night, 5 o'clock, will be Game 5 of the Stanley Cup, series tied to a piece. I'm all in for Edmonton. I'm all in. I think I was reading a team from Canada has not won since 93. All right, let's give them an opportunity to win here. Weekend preview is presented by the Wallace firm. If you or someone you know is in a serious situation, reach out to Brad Wallace at the Wallace firm to see how they can help. For more information on how they can help you, go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa or click on the link in my description. So shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace team, and thank you for their partnership here. Okay, I'm going to read a couple comments here, and then we are going to call it a day. Let's see what we got here. Let's see what else people have here as we get ready to call it a weekend. 3 of the 4 NHL finals have gone into OT. Yeah, I was watching Game 2 when that game was in Edmonton, and it was I think in the first period it was 3-3 or 3-2. I mean, they were scoring most of their goals, but that game ended up going to overtime as well. Any CP3 news? Actually, as you say that, as I was clicking on some of the rumors, I was reading them as we were just doing that. There was something for CP3. Let me see what it said. If I can find it, I'll read it here. Let's see. It's also reported that some of Cooper's pre-draft prep has involved Chris Paul and Kevin Durant being at the facility. Is that true? Yes, Chris Paul and Kevin Durant have been inside the facility. It's been nice to see how those guys work. All right, so I guess not necessarily news on Chris Paul, just that Chris Paul has been around when Cooper Flag is doing some of his workouts. Let's see what we got here. I can't root for the Oilers. They always beat the Kings. I like that story about Canada. I really, really do. I think that'd be really cool to see Canada get a Stanley Cup. Okay. I think we're good to go, everybody. Thank you for being a part of what do we have this week? This week was a busy week. We had a lot going on. We had a lot of great guests as well, and still a lot of good topics to hit on. So by the time we get back on Monday night will be Game 5, so we'll see what the series is. By that point as well, I'm sure there's a lot more going on around the NBA with some of these rumors, and obviously we'll continue to talk about it. I appreciate you guys hanging out all week. Please consider subscribing to the channel, and please also, if you don't mind, please consider being a member. $3 a month. It's a great way to support the channel, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. Thank you, everybody. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.